looking at me. I actually want to look at that than that.
I totally understand.
No, okay, I'll sit. All right, okay, Bill.
All right. Okay, we ready? All right, we're here with Clint Baker, multi-instrumentalist and specialist and historian in traditional jazz, America's music. Tell me, what attracted you to traditional jazz in the first place?
Well, it was a pretty simple thing. Around the time I was about 11 years old, the music that really brought me in was actually Count Basie and Benny Goodman, believe it or not. I was very interested in that music. I heard some records coming out of my, the fog of being 10 years old. And I decided at that point that that was the music I really wanted to listen to.
What was it about the music that attracted you?
It was that it wasn't what everybody else was listening to, for one thing, and also it was the beat of the music, the drive, the rhythm, the 4-beat or 2-beat rhythm. The big thing that happened is then around the time in 1982, I heard the Turk Murphy Band on the radio, because the Turk Murphy Jazz Band in San Francisco had a radio show, and they were on Sunday mornings. My father, who's not a musician but a music fan and record collector, not like an old jazz record collector, but a record collector, had steeped me in rhythm and blues music. He was really into Little Richard and Chuck Berry and Fats Domino. So I had the New Orleans music and beat in my head before I even knew it. Because through the swing music, through Count Basie, which I thought was just the best music in the world when I was a little kid, because the music was so grand and big band music was really beautiful. When I heard traditional jazz ensemble playing, the sound of the horns playing, I was totally hooked. And as soon as I heard the Turk Murphy Band, I heard there was no going back. In 1982, and then from there on, about a year later, I started my own band because I wanted to play the music of King Oliver, Jello Roll Morton. Through Turk Murphy's door, he opened the door to the original guys. You know?
Right. Now, do you think there's value in introducing all young musicians to traditional jazz, perhaps if they're going into a jazz program?
Yes, I do. I do think so, because there's so many things about the economy of playing. So much of modern jazz nowadays, there's not as much economy in the way that people play. The thing you can learn from traditional jazz is saying more with less content or less information. The music, you have to, in order for traditional jazz to work, you have to pare things down. And when I hear young players play, I feel like they come in at a level where they have a lot of chops, but don't have a lot of concept. So the traditional jazz can help focus on the basics in a way that other things can't, and we're so lucky to have recordings of the older styles of jazz, from the 19-teens all the way to the traditional jazz revival, and like swing music and on New Orleans ensemble playing. Yes, it's very valuable, and I think it helps musicians a lot. Everybody.
What do you think? How would you characterize the difference between improvisation in modern jazz and in traditional jazz?
Oh, well, I think it's pretty clear, particularly through my study of improvisation in the early days, how the improvisation was melodic improvisation. It started off in a place where the melodic content of the song was the basis for all improvisation. I don't think a lot of the early jazz musicians understood theory and harmony like modern jazz players do, as far as chords, scales, modes, all that stuff. But they all understood how to play melody, because their music came from a time when the music was functional. It wasn't like art music. It was music for people. It was like pop music or music for dancing. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of been, I think, so that's where I think it really happens, is that it's the going back to the basics of the melody or melodic content and improvising almost in a theme and variations way, like ragtime or something like the old ragtime style. It's very closely connected to that idea of stating a theme and then making a variation. And that's, I think, one of the most valuable things, is that that's a basic musical idea that's not a jazz or a classical idea. It's just basically music. I think theme and variation and call and response are the things that we learn are the most potent things from traditional jazz. Call and response being, well, somebody plays, like in a traditional jazz band, the trumpet plays a theme or an idea, and then the clarinet and trombone will sometimes play it back. I heard a lot of that demonstrated in the Rio Americana band tonight. They have a really good focus. So those two things, theme and variations, improvisation, and call and response are very, very important too. What are the things that really come from traditional jazz that are so much a part of the DNA of all jazz.
What can you say about the culture of traditional jazz, the musicians who play it, how they interact, what they're trying to accomplish?
Well, the people I'm the closest to, I can only speak from my experience, but the experience that I have is that the people I interact with on a regular basis are people who are very interested in the history of the music. They're interested in records, they're interested in old songs, and we do a lot of what we do as musicians is informed more by the primary sources and raw materials of the jazz than it is about practicing scales or playing in an exhibition style where you're playing a lot of stuff. We come from a culture of being kind of informed by the original stuff, like the original records. We search out sheet music, we listen to records, we try to play records. But my thing is I don't want to copy anybody. Like I don't play transcriptions. I just play my own style. One of the things I learned from reading books about the early New Orleans jazz men is that all of them, almost without exception, say you have to learn to play like yourself, and that your sound print is the most unique thing. So the sound you make should be recognizable immediately. And that was, interview after interview after interview, that's what the old players say.
They're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And you're the only Clint Baker of whom I know, and we thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, of course, Bill. Thank you very much. Thanks.